Good morning, friends, and welcome to New Garden Friends Meeting. Friends, our reading for this morning is Psalm 100. I am reading from the New Revised Standard Version, but I have ungendered the language for God. Make a joyful noise to the holy, all of the earth. Worship the divine with gladness and come into God's presence with song. Know that God is truly the divine one. It is God that made us, and we belong to the holy. We are God's people. We are the sheep in God's pasture. Enter the sacred's gate with thanksgiving. Enter the holy's court with praise. Give thanks to that living presence and bless God's holy name. For God is good, and God's steadfast love endures forever, and God's faithfulness is for all generations. I, like many of you, have some huge issues with the Thanksgiving holiday. To celebrate the start of a relationship between white conquerors and the indigenous people of this land, a relationship that was marked by genocide, torture, and hundreds of years of persecution that continues on into this day. To celebrate that feels really sickening. But like so many things, it is quite complicated. Complicated because the celebration that results from this holiday can be incredibly valuable. Spending time connecting with loved ones, preparing food together, food that often connects us to previous generations, breaking bread with one another, celebrating community, and being grateful and expressing that gratitude. All of these things can be deeply life-giving. Part of living a life of integrity is holding messy truths, finding ways to move forward that are ethical when things are not clear-cut and when there is no universal answer. Thanksgiving and its resulting celebration is one of those things. A thing with a terrible, horrific historical context, one that reverberates with injustices that last to this day, but also something that can be deeply life-giving for so many people and for so many families. Holding the tension of those two truths and finding the best way to move forward for your family, that is part of what it means to be a moral person, an ethical person, and a person of faith. Particularly for us Quakers, as we try to live into our testimonies of justice and equality and peacemaking. Part of how I hold holiday is by taking the parts that are so deeply meaningful to me, the practice of gratitude and thanksgiving, and spending time with loved ones and celebrating that connection with those I love. I take those things and I make a conscious effort to make time for those things outside of this one day of the year, this one season of November. After all, gratitude is something that should be for every season. and not just for this season. The practice of gratitude is one of the most important spiritual practices in my life. I make sure each day that I name one thing that I am grateful for. And more powerfully, even than that naming of gratitude, each day I express gratitude to one person. And I bring my thankfulness to God each day. This practice, it lifts my heart. It brings me joy. As the psalmist suggests in Psalm 100, there is a close connection between gratitude and joy and celebration. But more importantly, this practice of gratitude resets how I experience my life. It gives me spiritual and emotional resilience. Because when you are grateful, you acknowledge what is good and holy and life-giving, lovely and delightful in your life. And being reminded of those things, that helps you have resilience when things are challenging, painful, messy, and hard. That doesn't mean that I am always able to be grateful every day. Sometimes life is just really incredibly, painfully hard. And in those moments, gratitude is not needed or required from us. But often, even when things are really difficult, I am able to find at least one small thing that I am grateful for. Even if it is just my cup of coffee in the morning, or the sun shining, or hugs from my kids. This year, I have found that practice of gratitude to be very difficult at times, but also particularly powerful. As we approach the holiday season, many of us, perhaps all of us, are grieving the way that this year will be different. Many of us, myself included, will not be spending the holiday this week with family. Many of us are choosing not to travel at Thanksgiving or at Christmas or New Year's. Perhaps the most painful of all, we are all aware of how this is not just about displaced holiday traditions. It is about a global pandemic that has taken hundreds of thousands of American lives and continues to grow every day. It is about the loneliness that this pandemic has brought into our lives, about how we struggle to connect with each other, how hard things have been since March. It isn't just about the holidays. It's about all of the hugs that we are missing, all of the people we are unable to eat with, the dinners and the laughter and conversations that we can't have, not just at the holidays, but all the time. And yet, the psalm reminds us of one of the most profound truths of my faith. God is good. God is good and love is real. God is good and love is as powerful as ever. Joy is still present. tenaciously pushing up through the cracks in the sidewalk, like a dandelion growing towards the sun. Joy is still present, even in our loneliness, even in our struggle. And isn't that the way that life is? So bittersweet, so messy, filled with love and joy and loneliness and pain and grief and beauty and goodness. And in all of this, in all of the good and the pain and the joy and the grief, in all of this, God remains. As the psalm reminds us, God's faithfulness is with all generations. That living presence is with us at all times as we carry and face all things. We are God's beloved people. This week, as we begin the holiday season of 2020, my prayer for all of you is that there may be unexpected joy in your life. May a moment come when you fill your lungs with air and where the beauty of the morning is so great that it takes your breath away. May you have moments of stillness that are so profound that you feel connected to the universe. May you feel the love of God surround you. May there be moments of laughter and of giving and of good food. And may you connect with others, even if it is just through a phone call or through a screen. May you be reminded of how dearly you are loved. And may you connect with those who you love back. May gratitude be the song of your heart, even if you can only sustain that song for a moment at a time. May God's steadfast love carry you forward through whatever loneliness and grief the days may bring. And may there be thanksgiving and joy in your hearts. God is good and love is real.